Welcome to Conscious Profits Unfiltered. This is your host, Sebastian Nam.
Yo, what's up, guys? This story of Torri Shack is gnarly, man. I am not even kidding. A lesbian who was raised a racist against her own kind. She struggled with depression and addiction since she was 14 years old. She's a 2-time attempted suicide survivor. Since Torri was a teenager, she spent years battling alcoholism, addiction, depression, suicidal ideation, eating disorders, and sexual gender identity issues. At one point, she lost everything and was homeless, living out of her car as a result of her severe, untreated mental health condition and addiction. I know I've got your attention by now, and I'm really excited to share with you how she turned her life around and led her to form a mental health nonprofit called Tangible Movement, as well as launching a for-profit tech startup that serves as a mindful approach to stop compulsive spending. I promise you'll not only be intrigued and inspired by the story, but you'll probably get a couple of bonus laughs in there as well. Enjoy the show. What's up, Torri? Welcome to the show.
Very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Love having you. You know, I'm super excited to have you because, I've known you personally for quite some time now, and you're definitely one of the most raw and authentic people that I've ever met. So I know that what I'm getting from you is it. And so that's what we're going to get today. It's the real deal.
Yeah, and it's a double-edged sword. It's gotten me into a lot of trouble, and it's also taken me to different levels of success. So yeah.
I'm sure, right? I'm sure. I like to start the show by asking my guests, when was their last oh shit moment? And this could be something as little as like the last time you tripped over that really annoying plug on the 3rd floor in Santa Monica of the office that we share, or it could be something as important as a life event or anything that comes to mind. Your last oh shit moment.
I was actually doing another podcast, and
Okay.
I mentioned that I was excited that my girlfriend was not quarantining with me. But I didn't realize that she was going to be listening to the podcast. So I was like, oh shit. She's like, what? You didn't want to quarantine with me anyway? I'm like, no. I'm like, why are you listening to the podcast anyway? She's like, because I wanted to hear what you had to say. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
don't listen to my shit anymore. You won't get your feelings hurt anymore.
Don't listen to me.
Yeah.
What was your last hell yeah moment?
I'm working on a tech product. Actually, we're in at stages of finalizing the MVP, and we're like hell yeah as far as hopefully going to be closing it out next week and start fundraising.
That's awesome. Congrats on that.
Thanks.
And we'll get into that stuff in a little bit, and we're going to be talking about your mental health focused nonprofit and also the for-profit, purpose-driven tech app that you're building, which is Twella. But before that, you are a lesbian, you're bipolar 2.
Mm-hmm.
You've been addicted to prescription pills. You've been homeless,
Mm-hmm.
all those things. And I want to hear a little bit more about your story. I want people to learn your story. So tell us where all of this starts and like, where do these issues that led to all of these things in life start?
It started with the household that I was raised in. I was raised in Orange County, California, and it was a very white, area where we were living. And I actually grew up in a super raging racist household. My dad was a racist, and I grew up thinking that way, and as a racist and a homophobe. He was a major homophobe, and so was I. I did not think gay people deserved the same rights as straight people, because that's what I was taught at that age. And then at age around 14, I started having these really weird feelings for my friends or a couple of the girls. And I was like, this is really weird. What is going on? And so I had to face the fact, and then I started going to therapy, face the fact that I was more likely gay.
Yeah.
And also suffering from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And they diagnosed me, I believe, with severe depressive episodes, or just severe depression at that time. I'm not sure. I don't think it was bipolar. And so, obviously my father was did not think that anybody in his household should have any form of mental illness. His father is actually a psychiatrist, the lead psychiatrist at a Patton State Mental Hospital. Like he's
your grandpa.
My grandpa. So my dad thought he knew everything there was to know about psychiatry. So I come home and he's like, no. You're not taking those medications. That you're not that. I don't have any crazy people in my family.
That's so, yeah.
And so my mom demanded that we go to therapy, like just regular therapy. He's like, fine, you can take her to therapy, but do not use insurance and pay cash only. I don't want any paper trail coming back to our family. Yeah. So the stigma was really real for me, and obviously wasn't accepted within my family as far as my sexual orientation was concerned, or my mental state, my mental illness was not accepted or acknowledged to the extent that it should have been. And at age 15, I was my first suicide attempt. I just felt I grew up with ingrained in my head that I'm going to be a lawyer or a doctor, and I'm going to have a white picket fence with married to a man with 2 children and 2 dogs. And once I realized I was gay, I was dealing with all these emotions and this depression, I was like, okay, well, that image that has been presented to me for the last 14 years of my life doesn't exist now. Like, what am I supposed to do with life?
Right.
So I was so severely depressed that the pain was, to me, the only solution was just to leave the planet.
Wow. And you were just 15, and it's crazy. So it all had to do with this image that you thought you had to live, you had created in your head and had been co-created by people raising you. That basically you had, at least you had come to terms that wasn't going to happen because you were gay, right? And realized like, hey, this isn't going to go this way, so it's not worth it.
Yep.
So that was your first suicide attempt, and where did that go? What happened after?
Well, I was using drugs at the time. I started using drugs around the age of 14, and I started dealing drugs at that time, like really soon thereafter. So that was my first entrepreneurial career, was a drug dealer. Yeah.
In Irvine?
And no, Orange or Coto de Casa.
Coto de Casa. Hey.
Rancho Santa Margarita.
Probably high demand.
Yeah, because it was definitely in high demand for sure. Because I went to Catholic high school. I got into a lot of trouble in junior high. I was hanging out with gangbangers, and I thought I was a gangbanger, and I got caught tagging lockers. So my dad thought that the nuns would be able. I'm Jewish, but he thought the nuns at the Catholic high school would be better equipped to deal with me. So I went to Catholic high school, and I made quite a bit of money selling drugs to the rich Catholic high school kids, you know? So high school, you couldn't pay me to go back to high school.
Why do drugs feel like they help? When you're depressed and you're doing, you're living that hell inside your head. Why do drugs help? It
completely numbs it out. Like it takes your feelings away. You don't feel like either the anxiety or the depression, or you're not thinking about how horrible of a person you are because you're gay or whatnot. It's self-medicating basically. And so instead of taking antidepressants to make myself feel better, I smoked, at that time, was weed. That was like my first introduction.
Yeah.
Weed and a lot of alcohol and sleeping pills. So it's all it is self-medicating, period.
So, you had come to a realization that you were gay. This had a lot to do with your depression, but coming to terms with it didn't necessarily solve anything. You still had these racist feelings inside of you, this homophobia. So what was it? What's an example of how you were raised as being a racist? Like, so it was just your dad telling you like, hey, this is not cool. These people don't, they're not worth it. Or, what was that? What is that like?
The only terms that we refer to, like, I can't say them out loud, obviously, because they're so racist. But just think of every negative connotation of any nationality, and we would use a derogatory term to reference them.
Right.
And that was normal. Like, we didn't call Mexicans Mexicans; we called them something else. We didn't call African Americans or blacks blacks; we called them something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it was just, that was how I was taught to talk about these people. And then I would go to school and make jokes about it. And then, you know, gay people were, well, my dad specifically didn't like men, gay men. He was obviously didn't like gay females. And the only word he used to describe them was with the F word. And so I grew up with a lot of internalized homophobia for years, and racism. And I got my ass beat really hard. The first time was when I was in junior high school by Lakeisha. Lakeisha kicked my ass. And my mom was standing. It was I said something that deserved my ass to be beat.
Okay.
To her, okay. And so we got off the bus, and I didn't even have 2 seconds to think. She had me by my hair on the ground, just punching me in the head.
Oh my God.
And I look over, I see my mom standing there, and I'm like, Mom. And Lakeisha's just beating the shit out of me. And all the kids are watching this whole thing out of the bus, watching this happen. And I run over, Mom, why didn't you help me? Why didn't you come help me? She's like, you probably said something that deserved it. Because my mom was not a racist. She hated the racism.
Okay. So you had that dichotomy going on.
Yeah. And Lakeisha and I ended up becoming friends, actually,
Really?
after I got my ass beat. Yeah. And she was kind of my first introduction to because there was really no Black people where I grew up.
Right.
My first introduction to Black culture or African American culture. And it took me up through college, at even maybe a little bit after college, for me to completely have educated myself about different races and realized that my dad's thought process regarding the race and the derogatory terms that he referred to them as, they just weren't true.
Yeah.
It just wasn't. They're stereotypes. Yes, we have stereotypes too. Like, I'm white. Okay, there's white trash. You know. But you don't go around saying that to people, like, or yelling, "Hey, I think you're a white trash, redneck, whatever, blah blah blah." You know. So I just learned. I'm a history major. I decided to major in history, so of course I learned a lot about slavery and African American culture and all different cultures that were that immigrated to the United States. And I ended up majoring in a specific part of history, which was with an emphasis in the modern Middle East. So I was cultured and educated out of my racism in college, per se.
And that's amazing.
And my dad and I would have battles, like deep battles about it.
So, you know, just to share something myself here, I moved from Argentina at a young age, 9 to 10. In Argentina, I didn't really experience that very many cultures at all. I mean, most people were, you know, white descendants of Europeans, not that very many, natives around me. And so, and there weren't really very many, there weren't people of color. There weren't very many Black people at all. So I actually didn't see a Black person until I visited New York with my parents, which is wild for somebody from here to think, right?
Yeah.
So that was at a really young age. And then we moved to Orange County, right? So we grew up in the same area. Yep. And I obviously I came and the difference is I came with, like, you know, my parents being very open and very, you know, loving towards everybody. So I didn't have that in me at all. And right. So, but growing up in Irvine, I had my whole group of friends was very multicultural, right? So there's people from everywhere. There's people from the Middle East, from India, Asians, South American, a little bit of everything. Not that very many Black, but a little bit of everything. And just, something that I resonate with in a sense is that, things that we did back then and or said in the 90s or, early thousands or whatever, that we weren't really aware of what we were doing by saying them too. Is like, as you said, you would say something derogatory, something before. And for me, this is how it went in my mind. Okay, first of all, I'm not a racist. I don't engage or condone any racist actions. I myself am a minority, and all of my friends are minorities. So we can joke with each other and say these things that are derogatory towards each other, because in fact, they are meant as that, jokes, right? Yes. And so in my head and in our heads, we were doing absolutely nothing wrong. And obviously now with everything happening, we, we're becoming more and more educated in how those words can turn into it, right? Can hurt, right? And how that's different. I'm gonna read you a quote from Maya Angelou. She said, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better."
It's true.
Right? It's true, right? So sometimes if you know that some of those actions or things that you were doing before, if you just simply didn't know better, I mean, if you knew like, hey, you're doing something wrong, you're doing something that, and you were doing it anyway, that's different. But if some things that you just didn't know, and you have to essentially also forgive yourself, and then know better and now do better moving forward too. And I think that
and my father has gotten a lot better with the
That's
racism, which is he's a boomer. Awesome. So and it's because most of my client base, as far as my personal training is concerned, are Black. And when I first started doing personal training, and I started attracting mostly artists within the R&B music industry, they're all Black. Yeah. And my dad was like just flipping out about it. Wow. And finally, like after a number of years of having Black clients and this and that, one of the client and the artist I'm going to mention knows this because I've told him the story. And he knows, and all my friends know that I'm a former racist. Like, and I speak about it openly whenever I go to schools. Before all of this even happened. Like, that's who I was. I had to learn out of it. Like, and so my dad said to me, he's like, "Do you think you can get me a Miguel T-shirt?" I'm like, "What? What?" He's like, "Yeah, I think he's a really cool guy. Like, I like his music. I think he's really cool. He's treated you really well." And that's when it pivoted. And he got his Miguel shirt and he wore that thing until holes came through it. So
that's great. Yeah. I love that because it's not just the change, maybe somebody in our age or our generation, we're seeing it more and more. It's more common. No excuse in a way, but it's tougher for a boomer, like you said. So it's great to see that. Good for you to be able to see that too, right? So So I was going to ask you, what was this catalyst for change? And you started talking about it. You said after, I feel like the fight, you're getting beat up, was that catalyst for change in a way. It was like a little bit of a wake up call, which then led you into your studies and to becoming more open-minded. Would you say that that's the case?
Well, what happened was when I went to college, I was introduced. There was only one Black kid in my high school. And so when I went to college, I went to UCSB, and still not really all that cult.
By the way, we both went to UCS. Just anyone listening out there. So
yes.
Torri and I literally have the same life, and we happened to meet in our mid to late 30s.
Yes, and history classes, there's very diverse mix of students, and I had my viewpoints, and I was not afraid. Just like I'm not afraid to express who I am today. I would get into arguments with people in class. Like I remember this one time, this one Black kid stood up. It was American history. Like the only way Black people could make money today is either basketball or selling drugs. And I was like, and I remember raising my hand and saying, you know what, you're just living right into your own stereotype. And then there was this big battle with me and him back and forth, and the teacher had to break it up. And then we ended up talking afterwards, and I'm like, I need you to explain this to me. I'm like, because that's exactly what I think. Like, that you guys make your own lifestyle and you choose that lifestyle. You choose to just sell drugs or do basketball or whatever, and that's your only way out. And it was by having these conversations and arguments and me being an outward racist, literally, that started me listening. I was listening to them, and it educated me about, and obviously taking history, my major in history, learning about the plight of African Americans coming in and where they are today. It really helped me to change my viewpoints, but it took a lot. It took a lot. It wasn't just like one day I just snapped out of it. It took a lot.
It's a process, truly.
Yeah, it's a total process, and it's mostly through education, and you have to want to change. Yeah, like I realized at that point that my racism wasn't serving me at all. It was isolating me from potential really good people out there. So I was like, I just started getting more educated, and then realizing, wow, these viewpoints are just ridiculous. Like how I grew up thinking was just absolutely absurd. Yeah. And that's how I got out of it.
It's amazing. It's so important to figure out. When you figure out that something isn't serving you anymore, I feel like that's such a click in your head. It's like, why am I doing this? Why do I continue to think this way? Why do I continue to act this way if it's not really serving me? And it's just like a weird thing that we do as humans,
Yeah.
just because we've been
Yes.
taught to do it and just get into these cycles. It took 14 years to figure out that you were actually bipolar 2. And then that was another.
Well, no, it didn't.
Right?
It took me actually. I kept being diagnosed bipolar,
Okay.
and throughout my life,
Okay.
and I kept telling the doctors because my dad said I'm not bipolar. So,
Right.
and the way that bipolar was, I saw bipolar, in the streets, and so have you. People thinking that they're Jesus Christ, or they're on a psychotic episode. They're completely out of touch with reality,
Yeah.
and they're going through psychosis. That is how I saw and what I understood to be bipolar.
Hey guys, I just want to remind you, if you want to find more content like this, you can visit sebastiannaum.com. That's Sebastian, Naum.com. You can also get a ton of other marketing resources from myself and my agencies, ranging from SEO to social media, influencer marketing, branding, web development, and more. Again, that's sebastiannaum.com. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the show.
And I never went through psychosis. So I was like, no, I'm not bipolar. Stop telling me I'm bipolar. I'm not. And it wasn't until 6 years ago that I met a psychiatrist that finally I was like, I'm just gonna give her the basics of what I don't, because I don't want to hear shit about me being bipolar anymore. And I gave her the basics. She's like, yeah, you're bipolar. I just like rolled my eyes and sat back, and she's like, type 2. I was like, what?
There's different types.
Yeah, I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And she explained that there are 4 different types of bipolar. I had no idea. No other psychiatrist that I've seen a lot has ever educated me about the different types of mental illnesses and the different types of bipolar. And so bipolar type 2 is where you have severe depressive episodes. That's the majority of it, with hypomanic episodes. But most of the time you don't go into psychosis. And the hypomanic episodes last it could be seconds, it could be a day, it could be an hour.
Oh, wow.
And the way my hypomania manifests is in 3 ways. Anger and rage is number 1. Like I will just completely go blind at anger and rage. Like I have to be really careful when I'm driving because of the road rage. And then the other one is starting businesses. So I actually I had a mortgage company, which I started like literally within a day because people told me I couldn't do it. So I did. So I had a really successful mortgage company in my 20s. And then the nonprofit, after I accepted and surrendered to the fact that I was bipolar type 2, I was like, oh my God, there's other people out there who are definitely misdiagnosed and don't understand. I want to help them understand. I went home in a hypomanic episode and created tangible movement within 24 hours. Like the incorporation paper, I did the website, I did every single thing. And then I didn't look at it for 2 weeks because I slipped into a severe depressive episode.
Oh, wow.
So it took me 15 years actually to receive a proper diagnosis. And on average, the statistics are that on average it takes 10 years from the onset of symptoms to receiving a diagnosis of mental illness.
Wow.
Because people either don't accept it, they don't seek treatment, there's a lack of access. There's so many different components that go into it. So it took me 14 years. Yeah.
And that's crazy because so much can happen in that time. It's unfortunate, right?
Oh, a lot happened during that time. Yes.
Yeah. And
that could have been prevented.
Yeah, you said something important. And I think it was the acceptance was huge because maybe you could have gone on the right drugs earlier, but maybe the acceptance is a big part of it. It's the acceptance plus getting on the right drugs and all of the combination of everything, right? That led you to living a better life, the type of life you're living today.
Yeah. And I'm not an advocate for or against medication. Like there's plenty of people out there who choose not to be medicated. That's totally fine. Yeah. For me, I definitely need to be medicated. Okay. I've tried all the other alternatives, but yes, for me, you're absolutely right. The number one thing first is acceptance and the desire for help.
Yeah. So instead of taking a commercial break, I'm going to take a little humor break since, we do happen to know each other. I know a lot of stories about you, Torri. So I want you to tell us a little story about when you were going to the Maldives Islands with your then girlfriend, who's now your wife, and you had a little stop at security. What happened at security?
Oh, okay. So being a lesbian, we have a toolkit. Oh, some toolkits, and because some lesbians have dick envy. I have dick envy. I'm just going to be straight up. Like I wish I had something attached to me I could put into a hole, like and just be like, yeah, this is cool. So and my shit, she's gonna kill me. Okay, she's never really experienced strap-ons before and dildos. Like she's just had like traditional lesbian sex, and so I forgot. I didn't even think for a second. I'm going to a Muslim country.
So Maldives,
yes, Maldives is in the Muslim. I didn't put the two together. I stayed in Dubai. But I did not leave the hotel. I was like, I didn't leave the airport. I stayed in a hotel in the airport just because I know my mouth, like, and the way I look, like I could get into a lot of trouble there. I know it's very liberal, but still I wasn't going to take a chance. So, but I didn't realize the Maldives was Muslim. So I'm coming through security, the last point of security, and I see all these guys like, oh, talking about my bag. And then a woman pulls me aside and she's like, do you have dildos in your bag? Like just straightforward. She had a burqa on, like she was like full like it was. I was like, yeah, yes. She's like, yes. We're gonna have to confiscate them. This is, the Muslim. I'm like, and that's it. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. I meant no disrespect whatsoever. This was not meant to be disrespectful. She's like, it's okay. It happens a lot. And I'm like, okay. So they took my little bag of my little toolkit and they put it like in a storage area and gave me a ticket. So when I came back through,
hey, you got it back.
Yeah, I got it back. Yeah.
It's great security, airport security. I love it.
And then the people next to me who saw me getting taken, we were laughing, but then they stopped laughing because they had bottles of alcohol in their suitcase and they were confiscated as well. And so we're all standing there like, okay.
Dildos, vodka.
Yeah.
All right. So you started talking about tangible movement and how that got started, and that you started all in a day and then you left it for a couple of weeks. And so some time passed, got on the right meds. But so tangible movement, and you mentioned something earlier that now it kind of all connects. What you talk a lot about the stigma, and the hashtag for tangible movement, which is a mental health organization that you created, is hashtag end the stigma. And it clicked even more for me now, even after knowing you for a couple of years. It has a lot to do with your past and what you live with. And it was the stigma about having a mental health condition that made it even worse than it already was, because it adds extra pressure, right? The stigma of being gay, the stigma of having a mental health condition, as if it's not already hard enough. So the stigma adds that, right? So
100%.
Talk to us about tangible movement.
So initially what I wanted to do with tangible movement, and this is my initial thought, I knew I wanted to get back. You reach a certain age and it's like, okay, you realize that money is just not enough. I've made a lot of money in my life and I've lost a lot of money in my life. Mm-hmm. And I had realized after I got sober, because I went my second, which I forgot to mention, I had a second suicide attempt about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And that was the last time I was institutionalized. And I've been sober ever since then and abstinent from my eating disorder, which I also had. But I decided at that moment that I wanted to put forth a company that was going to be a do-good company, that like you can go to the beach and pick up trash in your neighborhood. You can go to a local home and old person home, hospice, and teach them how to use the iPhone so they can FaceTime with their daughter or whatever, right? And then I came up with a whole name and the brand and everything like that. And I realized after the next day, there's a company that exists that does exactly that. Okay. And it's called Do Something.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. And then I thought, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm going to do something that's really personal to me that I've struggled with. Why not be more open about my struggles and be vulnerable? Because I'm not very vulnerable. And as far as where I wasn't up until the, opening up through tangible movement. So I was like, the stigma is really real. There's probably a lot of other people out there who are going through the same thing, who are do not want to be labeled with a mental health condition, and or they can't get treatment, and or their significant others like, no, I'm not dating a quote unquote crazy person either. So tangible movement was born. Oh yeah. I've dated lots and lots, as you know, and I can tell. I know there's a few things that happen. Either they're mentally ill but had not had any treatment, and they say, "Oh, I really identify with you." And I'm like, okay. So I end up usually taking them to an AA meeting, okay, or something like that. And then there's the other type that we will be talking, and then they'll go to my Instagram and see I'm open about, mental health, and then crickets, know, there's like, oh no,
stigma, and that's the stigma.
Absolutely, yeah. So I've been definitely asked out of a lot of opportunities for adult activities due to the stigma and me being an open mental health advocate.
Oh man.
So, but it all worked out in the end because Michelle, when I met her, like seriously on a second date, because I felt like it was going to go someplace, and it was just weird. It just clicked. It was the weirdest thing. I just said to her, I said, look, I want you to know something. I'm mentally ill and I take medication for it. And I'm stable. And she's like, okay. I'm like, and I said, and you don't have a problem with that? And she's like, no, you're taking care of it. It sounds like you take care of yourself.
That's
like,
right.
yeah. And I was like blown away. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's amazing. So that's the goal of tangible movement, to help end a stigma.
Yep.
To get people
and change perception. Like our tagline is changing perception, changing lives. So we want to change the perception of what mental illness is. People think mental illness is, when they think mental illness is like schizophrenia or bipolar. It's anxiety. Anxiety is actually the number one mental health disorder. So changing the stigma. It's like, and changing the stigma around suicide, rather than saying someone committed suicide. I want to change the language to somebody died by suicide. It's like suicide is a symptom, and it's a symptom of depression that has gone untreated for too long.
I've never heard it said that way.
Yeah, and that's how it is. And just like somebody who has cancer.
Say it again. Will you repeat that?
Yeah, suicidality, and dying by suicide is a symptom. It's the end part of a symptom because of untreated mental health condition or untreated depression. That's just the same thing as if you have cancer and the doctor says you need chemotherapy in order to survive or whatever you need. And you say no. Okay, they don't commit cancer death, right? They die as a result of having cancer. And same thing with suicide. It's like they're not committing to killing themselves. They die by suicide. It is a direct byproduct of untreated mental health condition.
That reached a point that just...
Yes, it was just like, and when you're in it, like I've been in it twice.
Right.
You're not thinking about anybody else. You're thinking about, how do I end this pain? I'm so tired of being in this pain. How do I get out of it? Like, how do I get out of it? And your brain just is going, kill yourself, all these different suicidality type processes go through. And that just is you get to this narrow vision point where that's the only option. That's the only option that you see.
Wow. So tangible movement, your nonprofit. Nonprofits are difficult. They're hard to, how do I say, grow, help expand the word. They take a ridiculous amount of time because it has to be treated essentially as a business in terms of how to run it and how to operate it, right? So, man, I mean, we're kind of similar in a lot of ways, actually. We have we are both addicted to starting multiple businesses and work, and then just trying to do a million things, right? We're really good at overwhelming ourselves with a million things. But at the same time, we love it, right? Because we're passionate about all of them, right? I'm not doing anything I hate.
No.
Yeah. So
and sitting around just like my mind just goes nuts.
Oh,
So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So, running a nonprofit, I know it's really difficult. So why? Because it needs funding and it needs money. And so funding a nonprofit comes from donations. And I've had this conversation with many people, and a lot of people have found a way to further fund their nonprofits by creating some sort of a side project, by building some sort of for-profit model into it in order to fund the nonprofit. And having multiple conversations with you about this in the past too, it sounded like it hit you too. It was like, I think I need to go a different route in order to help fund this so that I can continue the mission that I'm really here for. So
yes.
What's that next step for you, Torri, as you aim to further fund tangible movement?
So I came up with a product or an idea for an app, and I wanted it to be inside of Tangible Movement. And I started talking to different VCs about this app and about funding, and all the feedback I was getting was you're going to need to take that out of the nonprofit and create a for-profit company, and then funnel the money back into the nonprofit as far as donations are concerned, or tax write-ups are concerned. I'm like, okay. And so I created a separate entity, and so that's one avenue. Like getting grants is very, very difficult. It's very political.
Yeah.
So we don't do grants. All of Tangible Movements people, like all our staff and board of directors, are unpaid. Nobody's paid. Everybody is a volunteer. And so that also really makes it makes me super passionate about it, because everybody's in it for the cause, not for a paycheck. So I created this product called Twella, and the way I came up with the name was Tangible Wellness.
Okay.
And the name was Twell. I was like, okay, Twell. And the domain was taken. I'm like, I asked the guy if I could buy it from him, and he told me $30,000. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna add an A to Twell, call it Twella, and there you go for $50. For this is my domain. So what it is a mental health app, and what we just pivoted actually.
Okay.
It's a mental health app, and what it was going to be a platform that had all different types of mental health services, online therapy, meditation, basically everything that you can find right now in the marketplace, in one platform. But now, what I have a problem with still, and I know a lot of other people have a problem with, is spending. And so what we wanted to create was a mindfulness a mindful way to stop compulsive spending. And like, for instance, like if you're anxious or upset or whatever, what do? Add to cart, or at least women do. A lot of Gen Z, a lot of millennials do. And
just like it would have been light up a cigarette before, or have a drink, or whatever it is. For a lot of people, it's add to cart. Right? Go to Amazon, go to whatever website you shop on.
And it's so mindless, and you don't see the money anymore. It's all electronic. So you're not really thinking, oh my God, this is so much money or whatever. It's like not even considering it. So what we're doing is we created like a pop-up blocker, but the blocker has options on it. So the options are you're going to pick what option you want. You want to meditate, you want to take a walk, you want to do push-ups, you want to do squat jumps. So let's say you go to ASOS, and you added that as a blocker, and you're like, fuck, I want this shirt. So you go, and it's like, hey, you blocked this website for a reason. Let's do a 1 minute meditation. This little pulsing ball will come up to meditate for 1 minute. And then there's still an option. If you still want to go in, you can unlock it for 10 minutes if you want. And then we also have on there options to, we're going to have options to take that money, like wherever money they were planning on spending, and putting into like a CD or some sort of a mutual fund.
Cool.
And then we're going to have like kind of like a masterclass idea where we have financial advisors doing like little video tutorials, like Finance 101. It's not taught in college how to actually manage your finances.
Not at all.
Millennials eat, avocado toast. They're not buying houses, and it's because a lot of them have spending problems. So we're using a cognitive behavioral therapy approach to combat online compulsive spending. And then other mental health components are going to come off of that the more funding that we get.
What a great spinoff. It's so, I wouldn't have thought about it before. Like, 'cause to me, I mean, I like to buy stuff, but it's not something that I go to when I'm anxious. For example, like perhaps maybe for me, it's more of like whatever's near me, like, I want to take a sip of or eat, like, you know what I mean? So if there's like snacks around me and maybe like I've started, I've noticed like, oh, I'll eat some more snacks, right? I do this. Luckily, it's healthy in a way because it's, but at the same time, like I noticed that there's an action with the anxiety. It triggers an action. So this is an action for a lot of people is shopping. So how is this app actually going to help me change behavior as opposed to just letting me know, hey, you're doing this? Because one thing is being aware, but being aware obviously is huge. That's a big part, right? So this app is now, Twella is telling me, making me aware that, hey, I am trying to cure my anxiety with my unhealthy shopping behavior. And so how do I change that behavior? So I like the way you said the prompt of the meditation, for example.
Yes.
So how do we further that change?
So cognitive behavioral therapy is exactly what it sounds like, is changing behavior. So there's tons of pop-up blockers out there that exist, but that's all they do is they block. Okay, it's like an alcoholic can walk by, let's say, bar A and look inside like, ooh, it smells good. That I can smell the beer. Okay, block for a minute. They're gonna walk by the next bar, and their defenses are down. They're sad, whatever. They're gonna walk into the bar and have a drink because they don't have any tools in their tool belt that's gonna help them to not have that drink. Like for instance, we're going to have accountability partners. We're going to have places that they can reach out to if they have, if they want to talk to somebody instead of spending. We'll have them do things like write down 5 things you're grateful for. Okay. Consider or go look at your bank account before you make this expenditure. Okay. Meditation, do 25 push-ups and these 25 push-ups, say your goals out loud, like what you want to accomplish in the next 10 years. Do you want to buy a house? Is this t-shirt going to help you buy the house? So those things are going to be built in so that it creates behavior patterns so that when you are prompted by something that looks good if you're walking to the store, your mind is now reprogrammed to think, no, I want to buy a house, a tiny house, let's say. Down the line, I'm not going to make this expenditure today.
Yeah.
So it's not just blocking, it's teaching and giving resources to individuals so they can learn new behaviors and literally logistically and literally like rewire parts of your brain.
I love it. And it's a great example of, conscious profits in order to help further fund the nonprofit of Tangible Movement. And so since it is a for-profit, how will that be, how are you monetizing?
Monetizing it?
Yeah.
So, and this is the thing that people don't get. I'm going to say this and you're going to think, well, that doesn't make any sense. You're going to pay for it. You're going to pay a fee per month initially versus a freemium. And you're going to say, well, why would I pay for something that I'm trying not to spend, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, people have financial advisors.
Sure.
They pay them. People have accountants to prepare their taxes. They pay them. People have therapists to help them overcome other types of behaviors. They pay them. Okay. Also, you're going to pay $4.99 a month, but I'm going to save you between $100 to $2,000 a month.
Sure. Yeah.
So we're going to monetize it that way in the beginning, and then we're going to have in-app purchases. Like, let's say we have a celebrity PSA, like talking about their financial struggles or whatever. They can buy in to access these premium features as far as different types of individual, like Suze Orman. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her. No. She's like the financial guru god of everything. But she's somebody that would garner a very high rate for speaking. And she teaches young people teaches young people how to save money. Like she's taught, like some of her success stories are like, she's taken a millennial who had they were living like paycheck to paycheck. In 1 year, they saved $100,000 by making all the adjustments that she suggested.
Tiny little adjustments here and there.
Yes.
Along the line, build up.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then we're also going to be partnering with banks. So let's say that $100 you're going to spend at Amazon or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, hey, why don't we put that in a savings account since
Yeah,
you're going to dispose that money anyway. So
Yeah.
we'll partner with the bank and then we'll get a rebate on the back end from the bank.
Got it. Now, are people going to be aware? Are you letting them know that part of what they're paying to, they're also helping fund this other great project, this other great cause?
Yeah.
They'll know
I'm
that.
going to say all 20% of the proceeds initially until, you know, we're able to, you know, have more funding. 20% or 25 or whatever we decide of the proceeds of your purchase for Twella is going to go towards tangible movement to help further the cause of ending the stigma of mental health.
That's awesome.
Or mental health conditions. Yeah.
And with, you know, millennials and Gen Z, we're all making more and more conscious decisions. We vote with our dollars where we want that money to go. And we're seeing the younger generations actually really care about making a difference. And even if there was a copycat Perfect Exactly app that was an option, but it didn't have, that was the only difference, that this was a purpose-driven, you know, brand, which is Twella, to help fund this other, you know, company that does this great thing, then they're most likely going to go with you. So I think
totally.
that's great.
Yeah. And I've talked to a lot of Gen Zers and people are like, well, they don't have money. I'm like, yes, they do. They have money. They get allowances. But the problem is they don't even really know what cash looks like. So they're not exchanging cash. It's all electronic. So it's all, they push a button and things happen. And then a box shows up at their door. It's totally blind, unaware, unconscious shopping.
Totally.
And I can tell you what, I get really excited when I'm shopping online. Like my favorite thing ever is going home and seeing the boxes on my porch. It's like, wow, there's my boxes. Like I'm telling you, it like releases endorphins. Just the
box releases more. You know what's wild, and it's kind of maybe disgusting in a way, but like all the time.
The unboxing.
I see boxes. I'll see some boxes, and I have no idea what's in them because I have no idea what it was. Luckily, like a lot of the times it's like consumables, like, you know, like a protein powder or whatever, this or that. But it's bad when you buy something you have no idea. Then you're like, oh shit.
It happens to me like 9 times out of 10. I'm like, ooh, well, what is this? I forgot what I got. Ooh, this is exciting. Let's see what's inside. Yes.
All right, Torri. Well, we're living in a crazy social climate, clearly. And today's youth more than ever is seeing, because of technology, because of innovation, because of the way exposure works, we're being exposed to so many things that we weren't before. What do you believe are the 1 to 2 top things that the new conscious leader should focus on today?
Obviously, right now, what we're going through with George Floyd is a huge turning point in and just history in general. This is going to change the course of history. So obviously becoming more racially aware and racially, you know, destigmatizing race, number one. The other big issue I think that is needs to be combated is, and it's not because of my political affiliation, it's because the fact of the matter is school shootings happen and there is need for gun control on some level. So they're going to have to combat that because neither of them are going to go away anytime soon. It's going to be a long, drawn out process, and they're going to need to have the resiliency to stick with it in order to affect change, as well as mental health. You know, a lot of people are getting on board with mental health driven, programs and proposals, but I definitely think that systemic racism is a major, major issue. It's coming out more because of who we have in office right now. The racists have a platform and they think it's okay to do and say things, and they believe that they are backed by the United States of America. So
I would say that maybe then what you're saying is awareness, empathy and awareness, essentially, for the new age conscious leader to have about everything that's going on in their surroundings in order to lead better, whether that is a CEO or a political leader.
And coming up with ideas. Like, for instance, police officers responding to mental health crises, like it should be social workers or therapists or other things. The police don't need to have so much control over every aspect of every single call. So I think it's going to come from the young people, the Gen Zers, who are going to create that change for the rest of us. But yes, definitely And the Gen Zers especially are totally about conscious capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
They will go work and take a lower paycheck to work for a company that has purpose behind it versus a company that is, maybe let's pretend Google, is a huge, waste tons of paper, blah, blah, blah. They're conscious about the environment. The environment is very important to them. And they're conscious about, where their profits are going. So if a company is donating a proceed of their profits to an organization that they really believe in, they're going to work there and they're going to take a lower paycheck versus working for the bigger corporation.
I think, and those companies will be led by conscious leaders, and they will attract better and better talent, which is
definitely
really important. So awesome. Torri, how can we connect with you, with Tangible Movement, Twella?
Sure. Yeah. So Twella is almost completed, but you can visit the website. It's Twella, TWELLA.io. And then for Tangible Movement, you can visit the website tangiblemovement.org. We're also pretty active on Instagram. So just Tangible Movement on Instagram. We have Facebook, Tangible Movement, and Twitter, Tangible Movement, but we're mostly active on Instagram. And our website, you can check our website for events. We do have a lot of events that we participate in, like we just participated in the We Rise mental health, Department of Mental Health event. And so website and our Instagram is probably the best way to reach us. And then for Twella, the website is definitely the best way so that you can download the Chrome extension that is going to do the deal for you when we're ready to launch it, which is going to be in a couple of weeks.
Awesome.
So you can sign up. You can sign up on the thing and get early, an early bite of the product for free.
Sweet.
Just put your email address in there, and we'll notify you when it's ready to download.
Super excited for it, Torri. Well, thank you so much for being with me today, and I wish you all the best. I'm really excited for all that's to come, and keep doing you.
Thanks, dude, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Torri. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. It takes a lot to put these things together, but I truly love doing it. If you enjoyed this episode or the show in general, and you listen to it on audio podcast, please take some time to give it a review. It would really mean a lot to me. And if you watch the video, please go ahead and just click subscribe and share it with somebody that you think would like it. It would really mean the world to me, and it helps keep the show alive. Visit SebastianNaum.com for more content, and follow me on Instagram at SebNaum. That's SEBNAUM. Thanks again for spending your time with me. I know it is valuable. I hope you have a great rest of the day and week. Till next time.